It's Nudie Magazine Day! Happy Tuesday. Somebody told you about a fat man in a red velour suit that comes at Christmas. Just wait, you'll see. He somehow squeezes down a chimney and puts all the toys that you could ever want underneath the tree. Now, just to make sure you're gonna stay up late, catch him in the eye. But if you see Santa Claus, he's gonna turn right around and take all your presents back. You left 6 plates of cookies like a trail of breadcrumbs to make your plan foolproof. Chocolate chip fake news, a glass of milk, and some carrots for those reindeers waiting up on the roof. You got your spy cam set and a drone to find out what's in his side. But if you see Santa Claus, he's gonna turn right around and take all your presents back. So tell me, how many years a week is it gonna take? He only comes once I'm sleeping, somehow knows I'm not awake. I keep on writing letters, but I get no response. I'm getting kind of stressed. But please don't tell St. Nick, cause I don't want to end up on a naughty list. Well, your friends at school been talking, and you're starting in on thinking maybe Santa isn't real. So you pull your folks aside, and in a real grown-up voice you say, it's okay, I know the deal. Then you drink 3 cups of coffee and try to launch your sneak attack. But if you see Santa Claus, he's gonna turn right around and take all your presents back. And then you see Mom and Dad, and they turn right around, take all your presents back. Happy Tuesday, motherfucker. I hope everybody out there is having a really good time, because it's Tuesday and this is how we roll. I'm so sorry I wasn't here with you guys last week. Sometimes life just gets in the fucking way, and there are no two ways about it. A million things were on my plate. I was waiting for some fucking COVID test results in my family. That's always fun, right? Getting your 8-year-old autistic son swabbed by a stranger. Also a great fucking way to spend a day, I'll tell you what. But I'm so excited to be back. I'm very excited to say that Wesley Graham has been rescheduled for January, so they're going to be on the show. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it. I'm also excited that we have another fantastic guest tonight, which we'll bring on in just a couple of seconds. I'm going to play one more to get things started, because I didn't get to play any last week, and 'tis the season. I actually have a couple of seasonal numbers. It's something I didn't have for much of my life as a songwriter, but as the last couple of years have gone on, I've kind of churned out some shit that sounds somewhat seasonal. And this one right here, actually, even if you are not a Christmas celebrator, if you celebrate other things or don't celebrate anything at all, we do know that in a week and change, 2020 is going to go away and hopefully take a lot of this shit with it. I'm not one of these total 2020 fatalists. There have been wonderful and terrible things that have happened this year, and only some of them have had to do with what it says on the calendar. Some of them are because the world can be a fucked up place. But this song that I wrote many a year ago feels more prescient than ever. It is dedicated to everybody out there that is hoping to turn over a new leaf or notice a new leaf or just ignore the fucking leaf come 2021. It's a song called Resolved. There's a good chance that when you hear this, you'll have a drink or two in your hand. And I know this holiday, you'll put the pounds away, 'cause I know it's kind of been this year's trend. And you promise yourself that you'll be 2 sizes down, so you can wear that dress the next next year's big toast. But that gym will seem expensive, and that food will taste so good if it's not the thing that you want the most. Well, last New Year, you tried it in the first gear, but still stalled out before the starting gun. So now you try this new thing and set your sights big. Try to tackle both the moon and the sun, so you can promise yourself all of the stars in the sky and praise Hosanna to those heavenly hosts. But you won't even bother looking out your window at night if it's not the thing that you want the most. Now I know you've got this laundry list of little things you'd like to fix, 'cause I've got one too. But aren't you tired of all those superficial, silly little resolutions that never ever seem to come true? It's 'cause the things you choose, they don't matter much to you. Sometimes I think this guitar will make me a big star, so I play days a week and weeknights too. And while it's a big gas, it only comes off half-assed, 'cause these bright lights can't shine a candle to you. So while I promised myself that I would tackle the world, so next time I could show up in both, I could only muster up well wishes and a bucket of cheer, 'cause that's the thing I want for you to have most. So I'll just shut up and wish you all the happiest of years, 'cause that's the thing I know that you want the most. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to me play my songs. I'm going to put this guitar aside for a moment. So, there are a couple of things that have really made this show tick over the course of the last year, or almost a year at this point. One of them has been the constant viewership and support of a small group of friends. They've tuned in just about every week. And then aside from, woo, it's a couple more of those. That's how you know this isn't a pro fucking TV show. So there's at least one more of those. God damn. There's a couple of people that have tuned in week after week, have given me really great feedback about things like which songs to play and which not to play, which ghosts, that's some heavy shit, which guests to have on and not have on, and all these other things about how to make this the best possible experience for everybody. And one of the biggest supporters has been none other than my friend, Dr. Matt Ucia, out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Matthew is one of my dearest, oldest friends who I've known since we were wee little lads about the age of 7. And we've managed to maintain a friendship for all these years, and I consider it one of the most important in my life. In my lives, I almost said, but in this life. Maybe the next one too, I don't fucking know. At any rate, I received a text from Matt about 15 minutes ago that said, my worlds are about to collide. And I'm also happy to be able to make that happen for Matt, because I feel like my guest tonight and I are in ever swirling worlds that sometimes intersect and maybe should intersect more, but it's always a Venn diagram waiting to happen. I feel like we have a lot of similar influences. I feel like they and I have similar approaches to how we write certain things or the things that we value in music. But I think there are also some big differences in where we draw some of those lines, or, at least think we draw some of those lines. And I'm excited to explore those things tonight. This is somebody who has played in Matt's fantastic living room, in his ever-evolving house concert series in Pittsburgh, somebody that I have shared the stage with in the Dojo of Shamelessness, hosted by Joe Crow Ryan, legendary and soul-supporting person in New York City. But tonight I'm excited to bring them on with me, to give them a chance to show me their stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Brook Pridemore.
Hi, how's it going?
Brooke, how you doing?
Doing
What's
okay.
news?
Doing okay.
I caught some of your live stream the other night, and it was fucking great.
Oh, cool. Thanks so much. That's been
I was
really
playing.
fun.
Go ahead. I'm going to shut up.
That's been a really fun thing. I started inviting my Patreons to make requests on a weekly basis for my Thursday show, and it's like I'm like almost anything goes. I stopped playing a Deantword song like in the middle of it because I'm like, I can't sing this, and like, but other than that, I've played basically everything that people have asked me to, and it really like expands. It's brought me closer to some people, and it's also expanded my vocabulary as a musician. It's
interesting.
Weird, yeah.
I heard you play a great Radiohead cover, which is kind of on brand for people that play the guitar and sing songs, but also based on everything else I've seen you play and heard you do over the years, it was a little bit of a surprise, and you definitely had your distinctive Brook Pridemore spin on it, and I truly enjoyed that. Like, I was waiting to figure out what song it was. I was like, do I know that? Oh, wait a minute, you should be bigger. Oh, there we go. I'm still learning what the fuck buttons to press down here. There we go. I do want to tell you that after watching your Patreon show on Facebook on Thursday night, I was getting back into Metal Is My Only Friend, and I was playing it in the car, and I played I'll Drink Your Blood for my 6-year-old, and he thoroughly enjoyed that song. He asked me to put it on his sing-along playlist right away.
Wow.
And we, well, he's got good taste. He doesn't quite understand what a metaphor is just yet.
Sure.
But he did really enjoy talking about whether or not you as a person were actually going to drink somebody's blood, or if you might have meant something different when you said that.
Well, that's pretty funny. It's one of those ones that I like. I know I meant something when I wrote it, and the whole point of that tune is like, it really felt like a growth moment for me. I asked somebody for a date. They said, I like you too, but it's just not the right time for me, so I got to say no. And my thought, I did not say that to this girl, but I was like, that's cool. I will drink your blood. It was like, hey, all good, man. Like you'd say Boffo or some shit, it's like, so it's like, later it would occur to me that one could say, I will drink your blood could be a metaphor for I love you so much I'd go down on you on that 28th day, and that is not what I meant, that's not what I was getting at by saying it. But it's just, and
that's, I don't think my 6-year-old understands the world in a way where he would interpret it that way either.
Right.
So,
but not yet. I mean, I use TikTok. That's another thing I've been doing since I got into quarantine is I have a TikTok, and I've discovered that you can do there's a whole community of people doing just like utter nonsense comedy videos, like just the most weird Dadaist shit. And so I've been sort of slowly figuring that out and seeing what works and doesn't work. And the only thing about it is there's no age limit on that. And so you can literally there's 6-year-olds on that have TikToks that are just videoing themselves. And so that's one of the trappings. So I mean, I'm not saying your kid is on TikTok, but I'm not saying your kid is following me on TikTok, but
I don't know what the fuck he's doing. I think he's asleep right now. He should be anyway. It's fucking 9:15, and he's got school in the morning, whatever that means in 2020.
And they're remote learning right now, right?
Actually, yes, tomorrow he will be. My son's on like some weird fucked up schedule. Some of the elementary schools 2 weeks ago reported back to live in-person learning a couple of days a week. So like he goes in some days and he's at home other days. So tomorrow he will be at home doing school. And yeah, there's a lot of schools going on in my house at any given time. My wife and I are both teachers. So sometimes we have as many as 4 schools going on at once. I don't know how that works, but it does. So you got into TikTok during quarantine. I want to talk a whole lot about that later because that's the one, not the one, but that's a social media platform that I wrestle with a lot as a teacher of middle schoolers and like in a middle-aged dude. I don't know if I should have a TikTok, if I'm allowed. I don't know what I do with the TikTok, but we'll get into that later. What I want to get into right now is this idea of what we got into during quarantine. Now, like I said before, you came on. I mean, I know you not only as somebody that I've seen at Joe's open mic a few times, but also as somebody that I know has played in Matt's living room and somebody who is eternally on tour.
I've actually never played in Matt's living room. We've been friends.
What the fuck?
And I've been on Matt's show.
You've never played Matt's living room?
Mm-mm. No.
Matt, what the fuck, dude? Can you please?
A few times I hit on weeknights, and maybe it's not okay for Matt on weeknights, and a few other times I hit with somebody, and they were like, "Well, we're gonna have it at Roboto, or we're gonna have it at, somewhere else." But I've been on his show.
And oh yeah, which is an incredible podcast. We're all gonna die.
I love it.
You guys check it out. Yeah,
I love it. It's a real thrill to be on that.
Well, it's a shocker that you didn't play there. I feel kind of stupid and misinformed now. But I was speaking to the point that you are a fucking touring musician. It's what you do. It's a part of your identity at like playing for the people and to the people and being on the road is, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, a huge part of your life and your mission as an artist. So if you don't mind getting into it, what the fuck has 2020 looked like since you, I'm guessing, couldn't do that?
Well, I'll stretch back a little bit and say that I toured basically half the year from 2005 to 2010. I was out basically half the year. And 200 gigs a year ish, and a full-time job at home. And I hit a wall in 2010. Well, at the end of 2009, my health was bad, and some other stuff was going on, and I was like, you know what, if I tour half the year, that was the first time I went to Europe and like in 2009 and you basically don't eat. If you go to Europe and you try to be vegetarian, you basically don't eat for a month. And then when you factor in drugs and like no sleep on top of that, it's a recipe for disaster. And I found myself in some pain. And then I found a solution to that pain through medicine. And then I was like, you know what? A good idea would be I'm going to go on tour for 6 straight months. And I left in January of 2010. And I got back in June of 2010. And the day after I got back from that tour, everything changed. And I had to stay put. I had to stay put for 5 years. So I didn't start touring again until 2015. And then since then, it's been, between 3 and 5 months out of every year, I'm doing something most months. going somewhere, and it's funny, in the last tour I was on, the last show of the last tour was on March 8th, and it was up by Albany. And so I drove home, and I got home, and I returned the rental car, and I came home. I got home maybe 2:30 in the morning. And that last week of that tour, I was like, I'm like, am I fulfilled here? Is this fulfilling? Like, it's crutching along, it's always paid for itself. But I'm like, is this everything? And I was really lucky, because the tour ended, and then on March 9th, everything, it was when everything started shutting down. So it's like I worked one bartending gig and I worked one sound gig, and then it was like, just stay home. And so, like, I was recuperating for a month, just like, oh, sleep 14 hours a day, fuck it, and like, and so I really was getting to a point, though, there, where I was like, I don't know if I may need to take a break sometime soon. And I'm all for I'm fine with hard work. You work hard at a restaurant, you work hard as a teacher, you work hard as an EMT, you work hard when you're in the military. Life is hard work. I mean, you're going to work at something. And I've been blessed to be able to do what I love for like a quasi living for a long time. But I was getting to a point where it's like, I don't know if I can continue on this axiom for very much longer. And so I was actually, my 2020, the exception of, being single, and maybe being single and like available, and then like, your dating life's kind of definitely gone down the toilet, but beyond that, like, I actually have kind of been blessed by this, because it's forced me to reprioritize. The first thing that happened was I wrote an entire second album. So the album I was recording before I left is now a double album. So my next studio album is going to be a two LP record.
Woo!
Which I never in my life expected. And I was even making the other half of that the now other half of that record, and going like, I don't know if this is ready. I don't know if it's done, and so having time to actually stretch. First of all, I've watched The Office twice in quarantine alone.
Good choice.
I watched, I'm slowly watching every Scorsese film. I'm going through everything I can think of, so I've got time to catch up on all this art. But I also proposed a book in June, and the book proposal led me to start, I'm actually applying to MFA programs to try to go back and get a second degree, because maybe there's another way I could be happy, besides living in a car. That maybe I could live in a car sometimes, but also write the book that I believe I'm capable of writing. Like,
Yeah.
it's really opened up all this other stuff. So I do, I to be clear, like, I am a Pinko Kami artist. I am absolutely, I went out and marched I had never demonstrated anywhere. And then I went out for the BLM protests in June and July. And I hate the president. I hate the incumbent. I'm sort of reluctant and sort of gun shy about the president elect. But what are we going to do? But I have actually been blessed by this time off. I've actually been taken care of here.
That's really fantastic. And I have to say, this talking about what 2020 is meant for creative people has been a recurring topic on the show. And I've heard some nice stories about people falling into a nice, writing regimen, getting a lot of stuff done. I've heard even more stories about people not writing shit, like songwriters just like not writing a fucking thing. But I have to say, it's exciting to hear that you have been able to actually open up some new stuff for yourself, and you've had the time to stretch out and do that. And that's fucking great. I'm so excited.
Thanks.
So a book, and where are you applying to MFA programs, if you don't mind me asking? I didn't go. My wife has an MFA.
Well, I already turned in the application to Cornell.
Okay.
And I think the other three are going to be Hunter and Rutgers Camden.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking Boise State.
Boise State.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Idaho or their writing program.
It's one of the full ride. I was one of the things that I was like, I don't want to pay for anything. I don't have any college debt, and I'm really lucky. My college was paid for. But I'm like, I'm not going to go back at 40, 40. And
no shame here. No shame.
I'm not going to go back at 41 and suddenly get college debt. I'm not doing it. So I'll go somewhere where it's paid for. And I looked at the list, and one of the things was, if I'm going to leave here, with Hunter accepted, the other three would mean leaving New York. I want to go someplace where I would enjoy it, where I feel like I would have a good time. So, like for a year-round good time. Miami, Florida is my favorite city in America. It's my favorite city to visit, but I've only been there in January, and it's 80 degrees in the daytime and 70 degrees at night. Do the math. What does that mean that it's going to be in July?
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't even pretend.
Right.
So I looked at that list, and it was like, well, Boise State would be an incredible opportunity, because that's a town that is way off the radar, but what a good quality of life those people seem to have out there. It's one of those places where people start bands and they're just in great local bands. Like, there's all these bands that sound like Built to Spill, and it's because they're all friends. Like,
that sounds.
He's around. He goes to shows.
What a great city to be in, I guess.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow. I will say, before I make you play some fucking songs already, my wife went to the MFA program at Hunter, but for poetry, and she truly, it was actually our child care plan for our firstborn, that she would take a leave of absence from the Department of Ed, and she would stay at home with the baby during the day. I'd get home from school. She would chuck the baby at me and run off to class. That was our plan if she got in. And it fucking worked out. And because we're bad at math.
1 second.
Yeah.
On the counter, it's for you. Oh, thank you. Merry Christmas.
Anyway, I'm going to shut up. You're talking about bands that sound like Built to Spill. I don't know if you're going to play anything that sounds like Built to Spill, but this is reportedly a music show, and you have played no fucking songs yet. I'm really bad at this part of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to shut the fuck up. I'm going to get out of the way and give you the screen yourself. And I'm going to say, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy a couple of songs by Brook Pridemore. Take it away.
I'm going to play a couple from the album of the songs that I wrote in the early days of quarantine. And I was inspired to write the song by one of the requests in the Patreon show, which, if you want to be a part of it, patreon.com/Brook Pridemore, $10 a month, and I will play whatever song you want to hear on Thursday nights. Somebody asked me to sing the song TV Dinners by ZZ Top. And I had never listened close to that song, but I was listening to it and learning it, and I'm like, I could write this song. I eat shitty food, So I wrote this song. I'm like, what kind of shitty food do I like? And I like ramen noodles. So I wrote a song called Ramen Noodles. And I was inspired to open with this because you opened with a 12-bar blues when your first song was like a 12-bar blues. So this is a classic 12-bar blues. Here we go. Eins, Wein, Drei, Bier. Ramen noodles by Maruchan. I prefer them over any other brand. Bring a pot to a boil, let them simmer for a minute or two. It wasn't what we wanted, but it was what we knew. Ramen noodles from a cardboard crate, served alongside almost anything we ate. My mother always made them with margarine, but my brother never wanted them with anything. And at 20 cents a piece, they were mostly free. I grew up to learn that they were neither healthy nor regarded as a dish you'd serve in polite company. But my 1980s palate don't know cilantro from shallots, and that salty sweetness tasted right to me. Ramen noodles every weekday night. They weren't complex, just a simple carbohydrate. Bring a pot to a boil, make enough for me and you. It wasn't what we wanted, but it was what we knew. It wasn't what we wanted, but it was what we knew. I like to let it ring out, you know. And then I was thinking of another. There's this, you know, sometimes I find myself in polite conversation, and I, you know, and I talk about the defense mechanisms that I don't use anymore, and you know, but have used in my past, and people are like, "Wow, that's." They don't really have a. I find out that I'm not as normal as I think sometimes when I mention old defense mechanisms, and I don't really know what started this, but there was a point for me where it was like, you know, a relatively regular occurrence was to ride down to Coney Island on the off season, and the idea at a certain point was there was like a suicidal ideation about it. And I don't do this anymore. I don't go to Coney Island at night for this reason anymore. But I did at one point, and by the time you get down there, it's like I'm gonna go down to Coney Island, and I'm gonna walk into the water, and just disappear. And then by the time I'd get down there, you know, I'd be over whatever I was upset about. And I realized eventually that that's way too much time when you could just go for a walk, you know, when you could just do normal stuff. But this song is about that, and it's called Leave the Living. Sometimes I wanna leave the living, and I take a ride out to the beach. Wet sand could not be more forgiving. My problem's not more out of reach. Sometimes I wanna leave the living, and I see the punchline I've become. Foreign film that warrants a revision. On an old tape that cannot be rerun. Yeah. Sometimes I wanna leave the living, and I lie recumbent in a dream. The doom knows no end and no beginning. No future pasture to be seen. Sometimes I wanna leave the living. Sometimes I wanna leave the living.
Brook Pridemore, ladies and gentlemen. Fucking A. Round of applause.
Thanks.
It's interesting that you wrote that song about Coney Island. I also have a suicidal ideation song, and the whole second verse is about me driving down to the beach and just going and not coming back. Yeah, and it's actually, I wrote it while sitting at Plum Beach, which is just a couple miles past Coney Island on the Belt Parkway. So yeah, when you were talking about that, I was like, holy shit. Like, I literally have a song where that is the second verse. And I felt very seen. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
For sure.
That's fucking great. Your ability to find the perfect line that's worth repeating 100 times, the line that can mean a million different things to a million different people. I think for most songwriters, the ability to tap into that or find that more than once is the ultimate goal. You can chase a lot of other goals as a songwriter throughout the years, but I think that once you realize that you've come up with something that's worth saying 100 different times, you've tapped into like the larger fucking, the great aquifer of, poetry and music. And whether it's, I'm filled with love and I will drink your blood, or it's the longest thing you'll ever do, or this, I'm really bowled over by your ability to have several of these. I used to think I wrote a great chorus, and then as I've gotten older, I'm like, no, I just write choruses that have lots of fucking words in them. And I find that the thing I'm chasing now is the ability to say less, but make it worth saying more often. So do you feel like, are these things you like craft, or are they lines that just fucking hit you, or are they lines that seep out while you're working on a song as part of a larger fluid process? Like, where do these lines come from?
Well, I don't work on songs.
Okay.
I can't really, the hardest parts in my life, the most miserable parts of my life are the points, and I hope that I've learned the lesson about this, but the points in which I have sat down and been like, I'm going to write a song, and you write, it's absolutely nothing what you write. I mean, it's there are words on paper and there are chords, but there's no song, like it's, and the other thing that'll, what happens is, I get to a point where, I'm just walking around. I'll be walking around. One time I clearly remember, in a couple of different Saturday nights at this steakhouse job I had, where I was running food, and the whole song was in my head, and it just stayed there until I got home. It was perfectly formed in my brain, and it just stayed there until I got home. And I had been thinking about a couple of images for a long time, so stuff will rattle around in there for a while, but it's like there's no song, scene missing, there's a song there. And like all the songs that I wrote in March and April, I understand people not doing shit during this time. I I definitely sat upright, bolt upright in bed at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and had to come down to my living room and make a little demo. Like my body wasn't going to go to sleep until I made a little demo of what was rattling around in my head, and then over the course of a couple of days, it was there. But nothing was really edited. There was no editing in the writing for this batch, and there was no. They were just suddenly there, and so really, if I'm doing my best job, if I'm doing the best job I can, I'm just a I'm just a channel for the word, for the voice of God. And that might sound lofty, um but I have really beaten myself up about not being able to write. And then the other thing is, you mentioned that line from Charlie Watts. I was in touch with, um and head over heels about somebody a few years ago, and they were a little less head over heels about me, but there was a short relationship there, and I said, life's not short, life is long, and they said life's the longest thing you do. And then, and this is somebody, younger than I am, that ended up acting pretty callous in a lot of ways, and pretty mean about a lot of things, but said that, and so, like, we're not really in touch anymore, but they said this thing. And because, it's not like I'm like a walking Zoom recorder or something, but sometimes you hear stuff and you go like, oh, holy shit. And so a while later, I thought about, the other parts of that song beyond that line, um, are really more about like my relationship with my mother, and what it was like when she died and we had to scatter. It was, that bridge literally describes the act of scattering their ashes, and it was like her cremated remains, like, were too stubborn to just wash away. They sat there on the beach, and we had to sit there and wait for the water to come and get them, and so it became this whole other thing. But it started from, and I also didn't want to, like, grave rob the experience of disposing of my mother and stepfather's remains, because it was such a traumatic and also bonding experience for my sister and I. But, and she's an utter saint about, being my sibling, and maybe she doesn't see it that way, but I really, you know I really think I could probably be considered a problematic relative. Can't go to weddings, can't go to funerals, you know, usually in Thailand or some shit, like, you know, flies in when the wind changes and flies back out, like, um, but it's, for me, it's been a matter you know, of listening for the phrases and listening for the voice. And I guess there is some maturity over time and things do change, but I feel less and less responsible for it. You know, there was a time a long time ago where my friend, I was down and out, and it was in that beginning of that time when I didn't tour, and I thought I was never going to write again. And my friend, who was in I tend to listen to people who are famous, and he was in a wildly popular ska band in the 90s, and so I listened to people like that, and he said, you're going to get to a point where um, if you do write songs again, you'll realize that it's not really you, that you're just a channel. And I was like, that's dumb. But then by the time I started writing, he was right. He was absolutely right. And there came a point where I'm like, okay, if I'm an accountant, I'm going to be an accountant. And you know, if I'm a lawyer, I'll be a lawyer, and I'll be the best I can be at it. But I got brought back to this thing. So I tend to just listen a little more than I do try to worry about construction.
That's fucking incredible. And like a craftsman like myself, it's terrifying and exciting. And I've certainly had those moments throughout my life as a songwriter where I felt like I've been given this magical phrase, this magical moment, occasionally large chunks of a song. But I've always, again, been about the marriage of craft and concept. And I can only hope that at some point I can get to the point where I am just being a channel and I'm not having to supplement what I've been, given through said channel, if you will. If you can't answer this question at all, don't worry about it. But like, how did you get to the point where you trusted yourself and the universe enough to allow that to be your method, as it were, for writing songs?
Well, I read the novel Timequake in college, very early on in college, the final Vonnegut novel, and he describes the plight of the old man in the sea, which I have never read, but apparently he catches the big fish and he can't haul it up into the boat, and so he drags it behind the boat, but by the time he gets back to the land, all the meat's been eaten off by other fish. And he said, I asked a fisherman friend what he would have done, and the fisherman friend said, I would have hauled the body up into the boat and hacked off the stakes and thrown the carcass back in. And he said, Timequake, as I was writing it, was not a good novel, so I did that. I cut off the good parts and I put some autobiography in it to flesh it out, and it's pretty good now. And that's always stuck with me. So it used to be like I'd have a song and I'd go and play it, and I'd be like, boy, one line of that song was good, but that's, or I'd play something for a while. For a long time, playing it at the sidewalk, the long gone, now lamented sidewalk bar and restaurant in Manhattan at their open mic night was like, I knew it was a new song if I played it there. And if I played it there and it was new, it was good and it was well received, I was like, that's proof to me. And the songs on Metal Is My Only Friend are the last songs that I did it. Even though I stopped playing shows there, I'd go there once in a while with a new song. Charlie Watts is actually the last song I ever played there on that stage in 2018, right after I wrote it. And there was that, but then there comes a point where you're just like, I'd send friends demos, but then when I wrote these new 12 songs, I didn't send them to anybody. I was like, this is what they're supposed to be, like this is the, and it all comes down to like, trust the people around you, but also it's between me and my I'll just say higher power. It's between me and between me and my God, which I think that's an important thing. I know I know I'm not playing stadiums. I know the venues I play, but I had an experience in making Metal Is My Only Friend where it was mixed and everything was recorded, and I was really meticulous I played almost all the instruments on that myself because I was like, I don't want anybody hot dogging on this. I don't want any baloney ass guitar solos. I don't want any stupid crap on this album. Like I
was wondering who played a lot of that shit. And I'm excited to hear it's all you. We're mostly all you.
The drum parts on I Will Drink Your Blood and Name Four Things were played by my friend Charlotte Kahn, and the engineer Vin did all of the keyboard effects that you'll hear on there, and other than that, I played everything else. I played all the other drums, all the guitars, and all the basses. Bass was really the thing that I had to learn for that. Was like but I was like, I want everything to be tasteful. So like we got to this point in 2017 where it was like ready to go, and I was working with this manager at the time, and he had this guy who had promised me the world a couple of years prior and then disappeared, and then popped up again and said, let me master your record. And I was like, I don't want him to go anywhere near my record. But he was going to do it for free, and there's a longer story to it. But I was like, I don't want him anywhere near my record. And this manager was like, you got to at least let him take a shot at it. So I let him take a shot at it. And he called us back the next day, and he said, I've mastered it, which he had never actually gave us mastered tracks. He was like, you can't release this record in this order. And he was like, this is the record that you, this is the track list you have to use. And it was like getting a label to hear it and all this stuff. And the guy had been on a major label at some point, but, and once again, this manager was like, you got to consider it. And I listened to it a few times, and then I said, I'm not changing a damn thing. And what came out is the track order. I was like, Everything at Once is the opening track on this album. It's not track 9. Like, you're not going to sell me on track 9. I don't care if there's 90 instrumental seconds at the beginning of the record. This is the opening number, you know? And I was as sure as I've ever been about anything about this moment. And my last communication with this other guy was he wanted to get together with me and explain this record as an anti-God record, as a profound and proud atheist statement. And I was like, I don't care how you interpret it. Like, I wrote, like, I know what I wrote about, you know?
Right. He doesn't get to decide that. What was his opening track? I'm just curious.
A City Without Limits.
I don't know a universe that exists in. I don't want to know about it. Fuck that guy.
And I listened to it a couple times. I did listen to it. And I was just, I can't imagine the misery it would be to pretend like this was okay. You know, to go out and go, so, you know, after all of this, like, I picked the engineer I worked with because I was like, this is what I want to do. And he said, sounds great. And the other guys I talked to were like, you know, I explained what I wanted to another guy, and he was like, that's nice. This is what I think you should do. And I was like, you haven't even heard the songs. So I just reached a point where I was like, I have to step up and take control here. And I'm, you know, and now we're making another record and it's different. And, you know, so, you know, it's all good in the end. It's all a learning experience, but
right.
You know,
I've never directly requested a song in the moment, but I'm going to do it here right now. And you know which song it's going to be. Since you've mentioned it at least 3 times, and I've mentioned it twice as well, can you play Charlie Watts for us?
Yeah.
I fucking love it. Ladies and gentlemen, before Brook plays a single note, I just have to tell you that there's like maybe 20 songs in the world where I've said, motherfucker, how come I didn't write that song? There's a lot of songs that I love, but there's this like select group where I'm like, motherfucker, I should have written that song. I can feel that song. I can sense that song. Why the fuck didn't I write that song? And often it sends me into fits of jealousy and rage. But the first time I ever heard this song, it fucking warmed my heart because I felt like this is a song that I wished I would have written, but somehow knew that I couldn't have written. And I was incredibly touched that somebody had. So I'm going to have Brook Pridemore play Charlie Watts, and then why don't you play something else after that? I'll get out of the way. you go ahead and enjoy yourself.
Have you ever really listened to the studio musicians when you can't always get what you want? How the drums keep clicking, but they never find the rhythm. Man, it wasn't even Charlie Watts. All of my life, I felt like that. How I never really hit the groove. They're lying if they tell you it's a short life you're living. It's the longest thing that you'll do. I had a dream that I was sleeping on a boy in a bikini who was everything good for my health. He said like plants keep growing and the seasons start showing, I'm just trying to free myself. And all of my love goes out to him and anybody who would seek the truth. Our hearts keep yearning, my people still learning. This is the longest thing that we do. He said he wanted to be scattered there. So when you two were gone, we both obliged. We took an epic trip to the north. We tried to drop you off at the shore. He said, hey, that's illegal, but we don't know why. So we tried to double down on our time. But the water wouldn't take you away. It's like you were determined to stay. Even at the Father's everlasting light, it's like you always had to be right. If you never stop fighting, you're a livid grease lightning. You'll end up exactly alone. Not the first, if the latter. You'll become a Mick Jagger if you don't end up a Brian Jones. And all of my love goes out to you, you insufferable, insipid kid. When it's down to the letter, you should have done better. It's the longest thing that you did. All of my life, I felt just like the Harlem Shuffle to your Susie Q. With love for the devil, I hope you're on the level. It's the longest thing that we do. And I want to play something. I want to just poke in here and say really fast before I play Pocket Scheme that that last bit, the Harlem Shuffle to your Susie Q. I looked up Rolling Stones songs ranked, and like 10th up from the worst one was Harlem Shuffle, and then like 5 up from the Harlem Shuffle was their cover of Susie Q. And the point was,
that's fucking cold.
The point was that, like, you know, I felt like we're both pretty low to the ground, but you keep stepping on my head, basically, like in a sentence. I picked it low to the bottom, so it wasn't like you can't always get what you want versus Jumpin' Jack Flash, you know. Anyway, this is a song about heroin. Soft Metal is my only friend. I'm still really proud of that record. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes went blank, my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes went blank and my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes went blank and my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes went blank, my hands came up clean. Nearly lost my mind underneath the Venetian skies, knowing I can see the truth is after me. We know and we don't care. We go where eagles dare. I took off on my own. Now I'm a million miles from home, in the middle of a pocket scheme. My eyes were blank, my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes were blank and my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes were blank and my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes were blank, my hands came up clean. And in the end it showed I wasn't feeling up to code. Banged another gong, I hoped you tweakers would sing along. And in the end it showed he died of everything I've known. I ran and I can swim, I can't change the mess I'm in the middle of a pocket scheme. My eyes were blank, my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes were blank, my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes were blank and my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes were blank and my hands came up clean. Somewhere in the middle of a pocket scheme, my eyes went blank, my hands came up clean.
Brook Pridemore, ladies and gentlemen, give this round of applause wherever you're sitting right now. They're going to hear you. I promise. Somehow the universe will carry the sounds to them. That's a great fucking song. Now, I got a text from Matt earlier in the day, and he said that when he was making his most recent birthday mix, he put Cupcake Empire on it, but immediately regret not putting Pocket Scheme on there. I don't know why he couldn't have two Brook Pridemore songs on the same compilation, but I'm just putting that out there. Also, I apologize for the confusion. Before, you have not played in Matt UC's living room, but you have made ramen in his kitchen. So there's that. Okay. I feel a little better about that.
Well, I did stay at Matt's house. I've been there. I didn't know there were shows there though.
Yeah. Matt's been doing shows on and off at his homes for the last bunch of years. A couple years ago, my friend, do you know E.W. Harris? I have to imagine you and E.W. have crossed paths at some point. Anyway, E.W. Harris, another singer-songwriter around the city, kind of like a folk futurist, very odd dude, and I love him quite dearly. E.W. and I drove out to Matt's for his birthday a couple of years ago, and we brought a pizza from New York. And we picked it up at fucking noon as soon as that joint opened, and we tried to keep it covered in the car. And I have to say, the Pittsburgh punks went fucking nuts for like lukewarm New York pizza. It went over really, really well, and I was kind of proud of that moment. Where did you
take the pizza from?
I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't like top choice. It's a joint in Park Slope called Pizza Town, as in won't you take me to Pizza Town, on Fifth Avenue. And one of the reasons that we went there is because they opened at noon and we wanted to be in Pittsburgh by like 7. And a lot of the other places didn't open until 2:00, or they were wildly out of our way. Like we could have gone to like one of the classic Brooklyn joints, but like they all open later in the day, or like, and Pizza Town is no slouch. I like Pizza Town. If you're ever in, the northern part of Park Slope for any reason.
I got a place about a half a mile from here called Rocco 3. And I just was like, I asked my landlords, I'm like, they were getting a pizza one day. And I'm like, where's that from? And they're like, Rocco 3. It's the one we swear by it. And I'm from, I'm from Michigan. And this is one of the things, I've been here almost 20 years and I've been waiting to get bowled over by the style of pizza out here. And there's a different quality to the independent places in Detroit that I wouldn't call it Detroit style, but I grew up on, and that's what it tastes like. And that's just what I prefer. But sometimes I'm in the mood for pizza and it might not be the best or most authentic style, but I like this place. I order from there about once a month now.
What neighborhood do you live in?
I'm at like Myrtle Broadway area, Bed-Stuy.
Oh, see, I gotta say, in that neighborhood that people dare to call Steichwick. That's a real estate term. I've seen. Yeah. I worked in Bushwick, not far from there. For a couple of years, I taught at a school in Bushwick on Star and Central. Sure. And we used to walk over to the pizza joint on DeKalb and Knickerbocker every Friday. And I have very fond memories attached to eating pizza in that joint and rushing back to get to our after lunch classes.
You know what's funny is there's 2 Tonys. I don't know how they do it. There's 2 Tonys on Knickerbocker, like 4 blocks apart from each other. There's that one, and then there's one over by the M train. And the one over by the M train is like good for pies. But it's pizza's pizza, It's like in New York, it's like you notice by the bad place. You're like, how are the drug front, right? Like
that's what it comes down. Like sometimes I bring my folks bagels in New Jersey, and we're not talking about going halfway across the country. We're talking about fucking New Jersey, like 20 miles from here, and we roll up with bagels and from like just whatever our neighborhood joint is, and they're like, these are the most incredible bagels I've had in my life. And we're like,
bad bagels?
Oh, I've had bad bagels. Sadly, yes, I've had bad bagels.
I love the places where they do the old style, where they're really small
and chewy.
Yeah. And there's one on 8th Avenue in Brooklyn. Like maybe it's like 8th and 13th Street.
8th and 13th. Trying to think. 8th and 13th or Prospect Park West and 13th?
It's not Prospect Park West.
8th and 13th. I'm going through. I used to be a slopey person. 8th and 13th. Next time I'm over there, that's clearly where I'm going to go for bagels.
Yeah, my place is. I'm like a block from Blue Monday. I'm right. It's not Blue Monday anymore, obviously, but I'm right down the street from there. My last apartment was upstairs from there.
And that must have been convenient on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I mean, we got evicted. I liked living there until the day we got evicted. And we got evicted, and I didn't have a home for like 2 weeks. And so other than that, I really liked living on the block.
Okay.
My apartment now is nicer. This is a nice place to live.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bushwick is still a very confusing place to me. As a neighborhood, I remember working there, and this was in 2002 to 2005 I was out there. And I remember the only white folks that lived out there lived in what we called the art dorms at 315 Morgan. Nobody even lived in the art dorms at McKibben yet. It was just 315 Morgan, and the only businesses that were catering to them were Life Cafe on Flushing, and then there was a little coffee shop and a little grocery store right on whatever the fuck that avenue is. Anyway, yeah. And I remember telling people, yeah, they're never going to come out this far because I had 8th graders who were born here that didn't speak English. You know, like I was like, this is too, I probably used the word Hispanic at the time. I don't know that I'd use that term anymore. But I was like, this is never going to happen. Nobody's going to push this far east. And like 6 years later, when I was rolling up to like rehearsals at people's apartments on Jefferson, I was like, bite your fucking tongue, Chris Q. Murphy. You're hanging in Bushwick.
When I moved out here, when I moved out here, it was like, when I moved to Stockholm Street, it was like, we stuck out like a sore thumb. And within like 3 months, all of our friends, all of our music friends were in the neighborhood. Everybody we knew was in the neighborhood. And then within 2 years, everybody got pushed out. And so everybody lives in other spots now, you know, but it went from, I remember working with somebody at a restaurant, and she was like, I just moved into my new place. I'm like, cool, where do you live? And she's like, oh yeah, it's in Bushwick. I'm like, is it nice? She's like, yeah, it's nice. Don't come out there. And like, I thought she was like, it's dangerous. And then I kind of realized that it's like, no, don't come out here because, you know, it's when I arrive, the other people that look like me are coming not long after. And, you know, I don't really know what to do about that.
Well, I think I now live in ungentrifiable Brooklyn because it's 25. I live in Marine Park.
Oh, yeah.
It's a 25-minute walk to the closest train.
What train would you
plenty of buses. I could, in about, 20 minutes, I could get to the Q at Kings Highway or the Q at Avenue M. Or the end of the 2 train at Brooklyn College.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is where I live. But, you know, I think you and I have been in New York for about the same amount of time. I got here in August of 2002.
Oh, yeah, I got here in September of 2002.
Yeah, and I lived in some of the normal places you would expect. I was a pioneer in Bay Ridge, and I swore that would never go. It was a little too old and racist, and now there's fucking 9 cafes there. But at some point we were like, you know what? We're never going anywhere. We are incredibly blessed to have union jobs in New York City, for what it's worth in 2020. So we were like, this is where we're gonna live forever and ever. So let's see if we can, live somewhere and not be itinerant. So we came out here, and I don't know that we'll leave.
I've been here for almost 8 years, and if I were to move, it would be to move in with somebody or to leave. You know,
right.
And that's it. Right.
And can you confirm for our handful of viewers and listeners out there that New York is not dead? That is a fallacy that is being perpetrated by God knows who?
I can confirm that New York in 2020 feels a lot different than it felt in any other year I've lived here. I can tell you that the kind of person who carries their dog in a purse seems to have fled.
Fair. Yes. Well put.
And I will say that for that maybe the rooftop bar coke and strippers party kind of crowd, maybe the city has died and maybe they will go somewhere else. And I invite them to go somewhere else. Take that anywhere else. Go do that in Chicago, you know. Stop doing it here, you know, because we need more Lou Reeds and we need more. It's becoming almost impossible to be a quintessential. There are no young quintessential New York artists. The youngest one is Parquet Courts, and they're established in a worldwide band now. So there needs to be more, you know.
This is true. Would I don't I'm not going to play any more songs tonight. And I don't feel like I have a whole hell of a lot to tell the world. So I was thinking that we'd change it up a little bit tonight, and I would say my good nights to the world, and maybe you could close us out with a song. We'll roll the credits on you. Yeah, I do want to let everybody out there that's watching know that next week we'll be doing a special show. Brooke's going to get an email about this tomorrow. Rather than having one special guest, I hope to have upwards of a dozen special guests, as many of the guests that have been on since I started having guests back in August have agreed to just come on and play a song or two real quick. No big chats, just kind of an end of the year reflection thing. People are going to pop on, play a song, maybe say hi. If anybody feels like hanging out panel style, my friend Mel Johnston, who was the first guest, has already agreed to hang out for a little while. Maybe we'll do that and go full on talk show. Who the fuck knows? But please do tune in for the last live stream of 2020. Y'all know I love you out there. Please give your full attention and energy to Brook Pridemore. Make sure that you head over to their Patreon and give them some fucking money. Make sure that you are following their shit on the social medias, including TikTok, which you never got around to talking about, but maybe next time. But I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight to my peeps and let Brooke play us out. Take us away.
Thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Chris. This has been a lot of fun. Another moment of kismet in making the album. The album I'm working on, the double record, is called Nebraska. And the night before the first session, I sat down to finish one of the last songs I didn't have all the lyrics yet. And as I sat down, I discovered that David Berman had died. And so this song is called David Berman. 20,000 feet of pent-up garbage escalating to air traffic zone. Bad news for the human tigers who just need a quiet place to make it home. I've been wandering the same four corners that Debbie caught me dripping down for days. Lips tremble from a blue-eyed absent girl, never noticing a brighter way. It's all the same, but I've been wondering, have you been thinking that it's time to tie a ribbon to my wagon train again? Tore it down and built new houses on it. We had to make a mountain into plains. Sweet Christ, the smell of rotting carcasses. Don't bother breathing anytime it rains. Wanna hear about your moment of apostasy. I wanna hear it from your next of kin. Since I've been leaning on a different kind of faith to clear my credit of a life of sin, start again. But I've been wondering, have you been thinking that it's time to tie a ribbon to my wagon train again? Thanks so much for having me.
That's Brook Pridemore. I'm Chris Q. Murphy. Have a great night. I'll see you all next Tuesday.
Night, everybody.